ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The previous Quranic verse is the saying of Allah in Surah Ar-Rum, verses number 41. That is talking about how humans have corrupted the earth and the consequences of our wrongdoings. The verse has also brought us to our writing titled Malaysia should impose higher environmental tax. So we are from Group 1 and this is our presentation. The presenters for today are me, Muhammad Abrahman, Muhammad Zikri Adenan and Wan Muhammad Yauddin. Briefly, the environmental issue in Malaysia is a very big thing and it keeps worsening over years. In fact, Malaysia's ranking in the Global Environmental Performance Index is showing a declining trend. Here in this slide, we are showing 4 recent pollution that happened in Malaysia. The first one, we have water disruption around Klang Valley due to Selangor water plant pollution. Then we have illegal deforestation at the Tasik Chini. Then we have Kim Kim River pollution and the Semenyih River pollution. So we found that one of the best mechanisms to tackle this issue is by imposing a higher environmental tax. But some people say that by imposing a higher environmental tax, it will increase the cost of production, which later will lead to costing avoidance activities such as illegal burning. Some of our argument on why imposing a higher environmental tax is a need in order to tackle these issues are: the first one is the non-effectiveness of the current control mechanism. Second, higher environmental tax can protect the environment. And third, the tax could give an alternative revenue to the country. So the first point, which is the non-effectiveness of the current environmental control mechanism, which is the tax incentive. Basically, the tax incentive is not a new thing in Malaysia because it has been long implemented in Malaysia as a carrot approach. For example, previously we have tax allowance in manufacturing sector, then we have tax incentive in food production sector and training incentive in service sector. But the problem is these tax incentives have nothing to do with preserving and conserving the environment. So during 2020 budget tabling, the government at the time has announced 2 new green tax measures, which are green investment tax allowance and green investment tax exemption. Both tax incentives are meant to assist Malaysia in first, of course, to preserve and conserve the environment, then to assist Malaysia in reducing its carbon emission by 45% before 2030. Besides, to enhance the industry player to invest more into greener technology. So both tax incentives are under the jurisdiction of Malaysian Investment Development Authority (MIDA) and Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia (IRPM). So JITA and JITR, what is the difference between these two tax incentives? So basically, JITA is the acronym for Green Investment Tax Allowance. It is the allowance given by the government to a company up to 100% of the capital expenditure incurred by the company on purchasing or acquiring a green technology. The green technology can be in terms of asset or even project. Let's go for asset first. It means that if a company would like to purchase assets such as the electric powered vehicle like scooter or car or eco-friendly machineries or even to purchase a solar panel, which all these are types of asset, they can apply for the tax allowance. Meanwhile, the project means if a company would like to invest into what we call that, into a solar farm, for example, or to purchase a green building, or they want to invest into any kind of green project, they also eligible to apply for tax allowance. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the JITA is the acronym for Green Income Tax Exemption, is the tax exemption which is up to 100% given to a company which is generating income mainly from green service. For example, if a company is doing a maintenance on solar powered air conditioning, they are eligible to get the tax exemption. Another example is if a company is leasing a green vehicle or electric powered vehicle to a customer, they also eligible for this kind of tax exemption. So to sum up, the JITA is more on capital expenditure, meanwhile the JITA is more on income. There are few drawbacks of the implementation of the tax incentive instead of imposing tax. And here we have underlined 6 drawbacks of the JITA and JITA. And the first one is that the tax incentive is a government's loss. The reason is because the government requires to spend money instead of receiving it. Second one is the tax incentive is not really comprehensive in case of Malaysia, because some natures of the industry are already impossible to fulfill the requirement. For example, is the oil and gas industry. And the third drawback is that the tax incentive is merely an extrinsic motivation, which is uh, driven by the government's effort. It means if the government is not giving any effort by giving incentive, for example, the company will have no intention to be more green, to be more green. And the fourth one is that the government government tend to spend allowance or giving incentive to the underdeveloped sectors. The reason is because the government wants to help these underdeveloped sectors to help them out. But the problem is that these underdeveloped sectors are less favorable by the investor. And the fifth one is that the study conducted by Islawani Muhammad found that many market players is not aware about the tax incentive given by the offered by the government. And the last one is the tax incentive usually commonly used by the political figures as a political tool to gain support, especially during election. So that's all for the first point. I'll pass to Brother Zikri to continue.
Thank you to Brother Emerald Aiman for presenting the introduction and the first reason of why the government need to impose higher environmental tax. Next, I am Muhammad Zikri will be presenting the second reason of the need to impose higher environmental tax. It is because the higher environmental tax can protect the environment due to the rapid urbanization. Farida Othman and others once said that due to fast economic growth and increase of population density, the water environment condition has deteriorated year by year. In short, the environment has to be damaged to give a better quality of life to the people. The question is it fair for the environment to be treated that way just to meet our expectation? Or is it fair for us to enjoy the rapid urbanization while the next generation suffers the consequences of our action? Now, let us see how rapid urbanization affects the environment. First is due to the deforestation. Deforestation has reduced the forest areas across the country. In the same time, animals that live there need to find a new home, and as a result, we can see many monkeys or even tigers come out to the city and harm the public. Second is water pollution. Water pollution by the irresponsible parties has badly caused many marine lives to die, and it can create a huge loss to the fishermen. And the third impact is air pollution. Air pollution by the vehicles or factories has affected the people as they are now exposed to long-term health effects. Therefore, it is a need for the government to impose higher environmental tax to protect the environment. This is because the higher environmental tax can increase the cost of production and subsequently reduce the profit. Thus, it will give more incentive for people to promote or use the eco-friendly things like public transport and eco-friendly vehicles. Lastly, higher environmental tax is already being proven successful to protect the environment in many countries. For instance, the environmental tax reform project by Vietnam is one of the examples that Malaysia can learn, as it has been benefiting the Vietnamese as well as improving the environmental quality in both short and long term. I think that's all from me. I pass to Brother Wan Diaudin to continue with the third reason.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Wan Diaudin. We'll be presenting the third reason of the need to impose high environmental tax. It is because the high environmental tax can generate revenue to the country. As we all know that tax is one of the income for Malaysia. However, the Malaysian tax revenue is highly affected since the abolishment of Goods and Service Tax (GST) in 2018 and the reintroduction of Sales and Service Tax (SST). Based on official statistics, in 2013 and 2014, revenue from SST only averaged RM17 billion per annum, while in 2016 and 2017, revenue from GST around RM43 billion per annum. There is a huge difference in income generated from SST and GST. Therefore, it is important for Malaysia to widen its tax income source, which environmental tax has proven to be one of the significant source of income to many countries. Environmental tax will be a new source of tax income to the Malaysia. The scope of environmental tax should be broad as the scope of the damage. The first one is tax on energy, such as petrol, diesel, natural gas, and coals that generate CO2 emission when being burned. The second one is tax on transports. Vehicles emitted CO2 during vehicles operation and fuel production. And the last one is tax on the polluters. Polluters should be charged for the damage from their actions that pollute the environment. In addition, Malaysia needs to shift to environmentally related taxes that can reduce the environmental pollution and at the same time reduce the tax income from the less desirable sources. For example, tax on investment, tax on income, and tax on labor. This type of tax encourage households to shift away from work in the legal market sector and shift toward untaxed production and sectors. This surely will affect the income for Malaysia. In conclusions, Malaysia should impose a higher environmental tax due to the first one is the non-effectiveness of the current control mechanism, the second one is to conserve and preserve the environment, and the last one is an alternative revenue to the country. There are three suggestions to have a better higher environmental tax. The first one is the government should revise the effectiveness of the current tax incentive in establishing a greener economy. The second one is the government should refer to other countries' successful tax policy, such as Vietnam. And the last one is the government and the industrialists needs to work together in resolving this issue. Because in the end, all of us will be responsible for our doing and action because we are the Khalifah on this world. That is all from us. Thank you for lending your ears. All questions are welcome.